All right. So good afternoon, everyone. I hope the screen is visible and I am audible. Let's start off with the basic idea of what are inferences and how important inferences are, uh, say in your CSAT test. Now, before that, people who are new to this, let me give you a brief idea of what these things are. What are we talking about? So we are talking about this general paper 2 called CSAT, okay, which you know is a qualifying test. Got it? So if you do not get a 66% in this CSAT test, which is of 80 questions, 200 marks. So if you don't get a 66, that is a 33% here. That is 33% of 200, which is 66. If you do not get this score, you will not be qualifying for the CSAT. Even they'll not check your general studies paper 1. So you can understand right away that CSAT is important because you need to qualify to get even your paper evaluated. Okay, now if you talk about these 80 questions, you will see that the number of verbal questions here varies from 25 to 30, generally tends towards 30. So you can understand 40% of the paper, 40% of these 80 questions is roughly verbal ability questions. Okay, so then you must understand how important verbal ability must be, so that the 40% of this paper, of this entire paper, is verbal ability, and the rest of the sections constitute around say 60% of the entire paper. So quant, di, lr, ds, all these things together constitute about 60%. Verbal alone is around 38 to 40%. Now, which actually shows the importance, the emphasis that they lay on verbal ability. Now, if you have analyzed the last 10 years papers of verbal ability, you will see from 2011 to 2020, if you see the paper, you will see that they are slowly moving towards verbal logic. If you see the 2020 paper itself, you will see that it constitutes completely of verbal logic. There is hardly any other question. Mostly the questions are inference or assumption based. Okay, what is now verbal logic? What is the meaning of verbal logic? You must understand that. See, you must have some idea of what is logical reasoning, as in how do you implement logic to get answers of questions where the basic structure is there is some information given. Of course, you don't need to replicate the information there. You need to find out what that information conveys beyond the literal meanings of the words. That is, there are some words written, and those words have some literal meaning. Okay, those words have some literal meaning. Now, of course, you understand the literal meanings of the words, but what you need to understand is not every communication just consists of literal meanings. There are so many ulterior motives behind communication. There are so many things conveyed just by the use of words, just by the choice of words. Okay, there are so many things conveyed by the way you talk to someone, by the way you communicate with someone, the place where you look when you're communicating. There are so many other things which come out of communication when you're actually saying a few words. There are much more that you are conveying. I'll give you a small example. Say, if you hear, suppose we are on this meeting and you hear me saying that I'm asking somebody to get a glass of water. So you just hear me saying that, okay, please get a glass of water. Now, without seeing my video, you would, or without seeing me personally, you would actually think not much of it. Like, ठीक है, पानी मांग रहा है किसी से. So he's asking for water to somebody. Suppose I now switch on my video and you see the person I'm asking the water from, that person is say 84-year-old and cannot walk properly. You will have a completely different idea of my personality. Like, ये कैसा आदमी है, इतने बुजुर्ग आदमी को पानी मांग रहा है. So understand there are so many other things which you communicate. Verbal logic is understanding the things conveyed beyond the literal meanings of the word. जो कुछ लिखा हुआ है उसके ऊपर क्या मीन कर रहा है author या speaker. So that is basically what CSAT is testing in you. Does this person understand the things, the figurative meanings of sentences? तो ये CSAT टेस्ट कर रहा है, तो आपको ये काफी प्रैक्टिस करना है. Now please understand, logic, a person has logic in two ways. One, he is born with logic. एकदम logic के साथ ही पैदा हुआ है. Somebody who say, like, if you talk about great scientists like Einstein or Bohr or say Schrodinger or say Heisenberg, then these are the people who have been born with logic, blessed with logic. कि एकदम जब जन्मा है तभी लॉजिक एकदम भरपूर भेज के एकदम वहां पे भेजा है. Now, not everybody is born with logic. Not everybody understands logically what might be things or what might be happening around. I just gave an example. Now, those who do not have logic, those who are not born with logic, okay, they can develop logic very easily by sharpening their skills. Of course, everybody is born with logic, but you need to, some people need to sharpen their skills. जरूरत है कि उस लॉजिक को शार्पन किया जाए. जरूरत ये है कि you practice so hard that your logic develops automatically. By that, I am not saying that any of you doesn't have logic. Neither am I saying that people like Einstein, Bohr, and Schrodinger and Heisenberg, they did not work hard. Of course, both are incorrect. All of them worked hard. All of you have logic, not a problem. But we need to process it in the right direction. We need to practice so hard that our logic is as sharp as required by the UPSC team for you to become an IAS officer or for you to work in civil services. So wo cheez zaruri hai. That is the reason why you practice this hard for verbal logic. I hope this is clear. Let's now understand what inferences are. Okay, so what are inferences? See, whenever we communicate, we talk three things always. Whenever anybody communicates in any language, they are always speaking one of these three types of sentences: facts, inferences, and judgments. Facts, inferences, and judgments. जब भी कोई भी बात कर रहा हूं किसी भी लैंग्वेज में, किसी के लिए भी, वो इन तीनों में से एक चीज ही बोल रहा है. Either he is stating facts, or he is drawing up inferences, or he is passing judgments. Okay, now what is a fact? A fact is a statement which can be verified or discovered. Important, can be. It can be verified or discovered. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of this verification? See, verification is understanding whether a statement is true or false based on your senses. Understanding whether a statement is true or false based on your senses. Okay, that is verification. What does this mean? You have 5 sensory organs. Okay, the sense of vision, the sense of hearing, the sense of taste, the sense of smell, and the sense of touch. You have 5 sensory qualities, or you have 5 sensory organs: your eyes, your ears, your nose, your tongue, and your skin. If you can use any of these and say that yes, this is true, or no, this is not true, then that is verification. Now, do you actually need to verify it? No. If it is possible to verify it, then it's okay, it becomes a fact. For example, if I tell you, say, there are dark clouds in the sky. When I tell you there are dark clouds in the sky, is it possible for you to verify this or say yes or no using one of your senses? Yes, you can very well go out and see it at the sky and say that yes, there are dark clouds, or no, there are no dark clouds. Now, you don't need to say yes always. You might very well say no. Okay, but the question is not whether you're saying yes or no. The question is whether it's possible to say yes or no. Okay, that is verification. If I tell you there is water on Mars, can you verify it? Yes, you might very well go to Mars and see. I am not saying like because of technological advances अगर ये अभी possible नहीं है, that doesn't negate the thing. It's also a fact, but with the current technological advancement, it's not possible to go for a person to verify whether there is water on Mars, but it's possible. So there is water on Mars is also a fact because it can be verified. Got it? If I tell you, say there is a plate of biryani in front of me, and I tell you that this biryani tastes really good, can you verify that? You cannot verify that. Why? That is because this word good, when I say this biryani tastes good, this word good doesn't have any meaning. I give it a personal meaning every time I use such words. Say I say this, the surroundings are beautiful. There is no meaning of the word beautiful. Beautiful जब भी मैं use करता हूँ, तब भी अपना एक definition उस पे लगा देता हूँ. I always define beautiful before using the word, and I not feel the same about the surroundings say 15 minutes later. मुझे खराब लग सकता है. But at that moment I am giving it a definition, expecting you to understand कि हाँ ये इसके beautiful का ये मतलब है. Got it? Now, so one requirement for verification is the thing needs to be happening in the present. Okay, abhi hona chahiye, nahi to can you verify anything which happened last Saturday, or can you verify anything which is going to happen next month? No, it's not possible. Verification can only be done for things which are happening at the present or which are existing at the present. So there is water on Mars, there the dark clouds, the clouds in the sky are dark. Okay, this biryani tastes good. Only then it's possible to verify. But suppose I tell you it rained here last Saturday. Okay, so if I tell you it rained here last Saturday, of course it's not possible for me or you to verify it today. But is it possible that somebody verified this thing last Saturday itself, or you yourself verified this thing last Saturday? Is it possible? Yes, this is possible that somebody verified it last Saturday. So I might go and ask that person, अरे तुमने देखा है क्या last Saturday को यहाँ बारिश हुई थी क्या? You can go and ask, or you can cross check from the meteorological department, from the newspapers, okay, whatever. But you can get it, or you can even draw from your own memory. तुम अपने memory से भी निकाल सकते, हाँ मुझे याद है हुआ था. So that is also something that you're actually cross checking. That process of cross checking from somebody who has verified it in the past is called discovery. So discovery also means this is a fact. ठीक है, या फिर वेरीफाई करता है या डिस्कवरी कर सकते हैं उसको, तो वो फैक्ट है. फ्यूचर में you cannot verify or discover anything in the future, तो फ्यूचर का कुछ भी फैक्ट नहीं हो सकता. Is this clear? अब तक समझ में आ गया, I suppose. Now let me give you a fact. Say the same one. There are dark clouds in the sky. I hope the writing is legible. So there are dark clouds in the sky. ये अगर मैं आपको बोलता हूं, what is the first thing that strikes your mind? एकदम first thing that strikes your mind. Possibly it's going to rain, है ना? तो ये जो आपने ये बताया, ये जो आपने सोचा कि हाँ आकाश में काले बादल है मतलब बारिश होने वाली है. So if you're saying this, then it means that you have somehow connected dark clouds to rains. How did you connect dark clouds to rains? Of course, you must not have thought about the scientific process कि ऐसे करते हैं, scientifically ये होता है, water evaporate होता है, वो सब तो नहीं सोचा होगा. There are dark clouds, immediately you must have thought it's going to rain. है ना? Why did you think that? Because you must have seen it before कि ऐसे generally होता है. Whenever there are dark clouds in the sky, it rains immediately after that. Got it? तो तुमने सोचा कि okay, आकाश में काले बादल है, इसका मतलब है कि पहले भी मैंने देखा है, और सिर्फ मैंने नहीं दूसरों ने भी देखा होगा, सबने देखा होगा कि आकाश में काले बादल होते हैं तो बारिश होती है. एंड वो phenomenon repeat होता रहता है. It's not that it happened only once. Every time there were dark clouds in the sky, almost always it rained. तो अभी अगर आकाश में काले बादल है, probably it's going to rain in some time. तो आपने बेसिकली क्या किया? There was a fact, एक फैक्ट था, उसके ऊपर आपने कॉमन एक्सपीरियंस लगाया कि जनरली अगर आकाश में काले बादल होते हैं तो बारिश होती है. जनरली दिस इज द थिंग. ओके, नाउ उसको लगा के आपने फ्यूचर के बारे में generally using when you got you had a fact, then you applied a common experience to it, and using that common experience you actually got a sentence about the future. You specified a sentence about the future. There is going to rain. Okay, there is going to be some rains in the future. There are dark clouds in the sky now. There is going to be rain in some time. So you actually said something about the future, and you said it quite comfortably. You said it quite confidently. Yes, there are dark clouds, it's going to rain. Now, whenever you say this about the future, one thing that you must understand is you cannot verify this. It's not possible to verify this because, like we already said, nothing in the future can be verified. Okay, so you cannot actually verify this. But are you confident about this? Yes. Why are you confident about this? Because you have applied common experience, not personal experience. It's not something that you alone have witnessed. There are many people who have witnessed it. Also, it's not that you have witnessed it for a few times. You have witnessed it hundreds and thousands of times, and so have other people. That's the reason why you are pretty confident that now that there are dark clouds in the sky, it's going to rain in some time. Not just that, based on this thing that you have drawn up, you actually take further decisions. If you plan to go out, you carry an umbrella because it's going to rain. If possible, you cancel your plan because you don't want to get drenched. Okay, this that you can draw up from a fact or a set of facts is known as an inference. An inference is a statement, number one, which cannot be verified. Okay, an inference cannot be verified or discovered, but it definitely doesn't contain personally defined words. If I say it's going to rain heavily, that wouldn't be an inference, because heavily is my opinion about what's going to happen. I might have seen it personally. It's an undefined word or a personally defined word. Okay, whenever I've seen the clouds are so dark that it's going to rain very, very heavily in some time. Now, that is something which is my personal opinion, but it's going to rain doesn't contain any word which is personally defined. It's all the words are commonly defined. All words in an inference are commonly defined. That is, commonly defined means what? Commonly defined means that commonly people know that what is the meaning of rain, what is the meaning of it's going to. Okay, that's because you have drawn it based on common experience, not on personal experience. So inferences are those statements which cannot be verified or discovered, but they do not have any personally defined words, and they can be drawn based on a few given facts. Okay, now coming to the questions that they ask in CSAT. So what kind of questions do they ask in CSAT? What will they do? They will give you an argument. Okay, they'll give you an argument. So what does an argument contain? An argument may contain two types of things. One, it may contain lots of facts. Okay, lots of inferences, lots of judgments also. What are judgments? Judgments are those statements which contain personally defined words. Like it's going to rain heavily would be a judgment. This biryani tastes good would be a judgment. Say Ramesh is a very good boy would be a judgment. Okay, because good or heavy, these are not words which are commonly defined. These are personally defined words. So it might contain lots of facts, inference, and judgments. And they might ask you, based on these facts, inferences, and judgments, what can you conclude? Okay. Second type of question, maybe it contains only a few facts based on which they would be asking, what can you infer from here, or what is implied by the information given in the passage. There might be a few facts based on which they ask, what can you infer from here. in your CSAT test, many a time what happens is this inference or implication is basically the central idea of the passage. It's basically the central idea of the passage. What say basically what is the passage conveying? What is the overall idea presented in the passage? Basically that. Okay, so most cases these are the types of questions that they ask. Now you will see, if you have analyzed the CSAT paper, you will see that many of the questions are based on inferences. In fact, more than half of those 38 to 40% of the questions are inference based, or rather were inference based in 2020, and it's expected that they will be inference based in 2021 also. So you must be really clear about this idea. Also, to confuse you, they will give you something called fillers. So what are fillers? Fillers are those statements which may be contextual, which may be something related to the background of the main set of facts or main set of inferences, and the author or the question setter wants to just keep you engaged, so that you might sometimes think that, okay, this particular extra information is the main information, and you draw your inference based on that extra information. So the first thing that you do for your test, when you have a question, the first thing that you do is you remove the fillers. जो extra information होता है, the extra information you remove. Please understand, please try to understand which are the pieces of information. Okay, so Samita asked me to explain what are fillers. So I'll tell you what fillers are. So see, what happens is, mostly say there is a fact number 1, there is a fact number 2, there is an inference number 1. Based on this, he asks you to draw up the conclusion. Or they might use things like, which of the following can you infer from this set of pieces of information? Okay, which of the following can you infer from, say, the first fact or the second fact? Which of the following can be concluded? Which of the following is implied from these particular things? Okay, so what basically happens is you will have to understand that these are only the pieces of information based on which you can conclude. But in the question stem, that is the passage, will they ever give you these 3 sentences only? Will they ever give you like number 1, this is fact number 1, this is fact number 2, this is inference number 1? Will they give you this information only? No, they'll give you lots of other pieces of information. For example, say backdrop of fact 1. Like, how did we arrive to fact 1? Say history of fact 2. What are the gradual steps through which we arrive to fact 2? Okay, or what is the assumption based on which this inference is drawn? Now, these all are your fillers. Those things which you do not require to answer the question. You just require these 3 things: fact 1, fact 2, and inference 1. Just based on these, you can draw up the conclusion or draw the inference or understand what is implied. You don't need the history of fact 2 or the backdrop of fact 1 to answer the question. These are fillers. So first thing that you do is remove these fillers. Okay, first thing that you do is completely remove these fillers, because they are going to be hindrance in your answering the question. Okay, you must very clearly understand what actually is required to answer the question. Second thing you do is you segregate the premises. Premises would consist of 3 things like we discussed: facts, inferences, and judgments. Okay, now what do I mean by this segregate the premises? So there may be, say, a few facts. So fact 1, fact 2, and fact 3. Based on fact 1 and fact 2, they have drawn up an inference. Now he's asking, what is the central idea of this entire thing? You cannot remove this inference and then draw the central idea. Your central idea must be based on all these 4 things, all these 4 pieces of information. It cannot be just based on one fact, or say fact number 3, or just fact number 2 and the inference. It has to be based on the entire thing. Now, when he says which of the following can you infer from this, That inference may be an inference from this inference plus fact 3, or it might be an inference from fact 1, from fact 2 and fact 3. इसके ऊपर बेस करके भी हो सकता है. It might be based on just fact 1, fact 2 and fact 3, and this inference is not taken into account for your answer. So that might be the case. These are the things you must do. So once you do this, it will be pretty easy for you to understand what your inference will be. But before you actually tick your answer, what you need to do is, third thing that you do is you frame inferences. You frame inferences in your mind. This might be the inference. This might be an inference. This might be an inference. You do that. After that, fourth step is you match with the options. You do this. So these are the steps you must follow. Of course, it's not that you need to distinctly do these steps one by one, but this might be the thought process in your mind. Whenever you see a question based on inferences, first thing that should come to your mind is, let's remove the fillers. Kuch aise information honge, there will be some pieces of information which I will not require to answer the question. I will remove them. Okay, then I segregate, okay, based on what should I answer, then I frame the inference in my mind. Probably this one of these three things is the inference. Then you match with the options, which options is actually matching with your thought process. Okay, now sorry, what is the difference between inference and conclusion? Okay, so if you want to understand the difference between inference and conclusion, then you must understand what an argument is. Okay, let's assume that you don't have any idea. So what is an argument? Now, generally when we discuss things, whenever we talk, the structure in which we discuss things is, there are lots of facts. Okay, let's say fact 1, fact 2, fact 3, and so on. Then there are inferences. So let's say inference 1, inference 2, inference 3, and so on. Then we have judgment 1, say judgment 2. Now, of course, what will you do now? You will take one fact, another fact, and draw up another inference. This is how we always talk. This is something going on in our conversations. You take one inference, another inference, you pass a judgment. You take one judgment, another inference, another fact, you draw up another inference. Sorry, this is 4, this is 5, and so on. Now, whenever we talk, there is a structure which we follow. That is, we have facts, inferences, and judgments, based on which we either draw another inference or another judgment or pass another judgment. Of course, we cannot draw up facts because facts happen. Facts come from more research, say new things happen, new knowledge is gained. So from those facts come. So based on all the facts in the world, inferences that are drawn by human beings or say have been researched on, or judgments passed by others, we draw up our own inferences and judgments. This is continually happening in our conversations. This structure is known as an argument. Sorry, this let me write it down again. So facts, inferences, judgments. Based on these, we draw up our own inferences and judgments. Now this continues. It's not that this ends here. Now new fact comes, you take one inference and that new fact and draw up a new inference. Another new judgment is passed by, say, an expert. So you take that judgment, take up your judgment and draw up a new inference. More new facts come. So you take up those new facts, you take up an inference that you have already drawn, then you draw up another inference. So these things keep on happening. But if you take one of these elements of this entire thing, then this structure is called an argument. This entire structure, okay, consisting of facts, inferences, and judgments. And based on those facts, inferences, and judgments, you draw up new inferences or pass new judgments. These facts, inferences, or judgments, based on which you draw up new inferences or judgments, they are called premises. And this inference or judgment that you draw, that's known as the conclusion. So what do you understand is the difference between an inference and a conclusion? And a conclusion is an all-encompassing thing. Anything that you draw up from given information is a conclusion. Inference that you draw up from a given conclusion is also given set of pieces of information is also a conclusion, but judgments may also be conclusion. Got it? So conclusion is the part of the argument which you have drawn up from the given information. Got it? It's an all-encompassing thing. I hope you understand this. Okay. Now, whatever we discussed till now, we will have to go forward and test this in some of the questions. So I have actually picked up a few questions from, say, 2016 and 2017 CSAT papers. So let us see a few of them. Let us read one of these questions. So of course, I have 10 questions here. I don't think we have time to cover all those 10 questions, but of course, we will pick up some of the questions and then do the analysis of them. So let me read this out for you. Climate adaptation may be rendered ineffective if policies are not designed in the context of other development concerns. Okay, so what is he saying here? He's saying that the way you adapt to new climatic conditions, that actually becomes ineffective. That doesn't work if policies are not designed in context of other development concerns, if policies do not take into account the other concerns of development. Then he's giving an example. Please understand what he's doing. This he has given most likely the conclusion. Okay. Then he's giving an example. Why is he saying this? Why is he saying that climate adaptation will not work if we do not consider other development concerns? So, for instance, a comprehensive strategy that seeks to improve food security in the context of climate change may include a set of coordinated measures related to agricultural extension, crop diversification, integrated water and pest management, and agricultural information services. So what is he saying here? What example is he giving? He's saying a comprehensive strategy that seeks to improve food security in the context of climate change. So you want to control climate change, or you want to, say, have positive climate change. For that, food security must also be included there. Why? Because it should include a set of coordinated measures related to all these things: agricultural extension, crop diversification, integrated water and pest management, and agricultural information services. Some of these measures may have to do with climate changes and others with economic development. So what is he saying? He's saying if you take an entire strategy for food security, okay, the entire thing should be food security. Okay. So the entire, I'm talking about a comprehensive package on food security. I want a complete package on food security is what I'm saying. Then I'm saying that that food security package should contain steps not just for climate change control, but for development of agricultural practices also, or say crop diversification also, or say pest management and water management also. Some of these measures have to do with climate changes and others with economic development. This is what he's saying. Then he's concluding climate adaptation may be rendered ineffective. If you just consider the climate adaptation part, then it will not work if you do not take other development concerns into account. So this is basically the pieces of information that he has given. I hope you have understood the pieces of information that he has given. Now he's asking, which of the following is the, or what is the most logical and rational inference that can be made from the above passage? So first thing that you understand about inference is the inference will not be there in the passage itself. It's not that you can replicate one of the sentences as your inference. So you will have to find out something which probably gives you the gist of it. Now, if I'm saying, say I'm telling to you that, okay, look, if you have to draw up a complete package for something, there are many concerns that you need to consider. One related to climate adaptation or climate change, another related to economic development. Okay, without either, the other one will not work. So if you just look at economic development and not climate change, then that will not work, because the climate will not leave you in peace. If you are considering only about climate change, that will not work, because economic development, if there is no economic development, people will not have food to eat. Okay, so these two things will not work if it is in isolation. What is the inference that you draw from here? We should actually design only policies which take all these things into account. So that is the basic idea you frame in your mind. So what is he basically saying? He's saying, he's giving an example. So if there is food security in the context of, say, you're making a package on food security, it should have all types of things in its gamut. That is, it should have climate change related things. It should have economic development related things. And climate change related policies will not work without economic development. That is, if you do not consider economic development, is what is he saying. What can you infer from this? Of course, do not design, like if this is the piece of information I have, so what will I say to the person who is telling me this? Of course, and do not actually design those policies which do not take into account all these things. So if you are designing a policy on climate change, make sure you design, you factor in economic development also. So that is the basic idea I frame in my mind. The answer will be something related to this. Now let us see the options. Option A, it is difficult to pursue climate adaptation in developing countries. Is there anything related to developing countries here? Is there anything specified related to developing countries? Or are we taking our own knowledge into account here, saying that all these problems only come in developing countries, they don't come in developed countries? Probably no. They come more in developed countries because all these things happen more in developed countries. So option A you can eliminate because we don't have any mention of developing countries or developed countries. And we don't even say assume anything related to developing or developed countries because we don't know what we are talking about, whether we are talking about developed countries or developing countries or underdeveloped countries. Okay. Now, if you see option B, improving food security is a far more complex issue than climate adaptation. Now, here comes this concept of fillers. Okay. See, this food security thing is only an example. If you remove food security and bring in bring in another example of industrialization, then the whole argument will work. But if you remove the first line, then the whole argument will not work. This line, climate adaptation may be rendered ineffective. If you remove this part, then the whole passage will not work because it will be talking about something else. But suppose you remove the food security example and bring in industrialization example, then also this will work. So that food security part only. I'm not saying the entire example. The example is necessary, but that food security part is basically a filler. That is not something affecting your answer. So most likely any sentence containing food security will not be your main inference. Of course, it might be a side inference, but it will not be your main inference. It will not be the most logical or rational inference. So anyway, even if it is considered, then you see improving food security is far more complex than climate adaptation. Did we ever say that food security is a complex thing? No, we are just giving an example of food security and saying that in food security, only climate control will not work. It has to go with like increasing the output also. So B you can eliminate. If you see C, every developmental activity is directly or indirectly linked to climate adaptation. Every developmental activity is directly or indirectly linked to climate adaptation. Are we talking about this? Is this something that you can draw from this paragraph? Probably this one is true based on your knowledge. Okay. Nowadays, whenever you talk of any kind of developmental activity like industrialization or better agriculture or say improving agriculture through irrigation or other things, okay, you always consider there is always an aspect of climate adaptation. But is this something conveyed by this particular paragraph? Probably no. Okay. So C also you can keep on hold. Most likely C is not your answer. Let us see D and then decide. Climate adaptation should be examined in tandem with other developmental or development options. This is actually what we can infer from the first statement. If we are saying there are two things A and B, there are two things A and B, and A without B will not work. So the conclusion would be climate adaptation should be examined in tandem with other economic development options. That is, A should be examined in tandem with B. So this is something which we can draw from this particular passage. I hope you understand this. So D is your answer in this case. Yes. I have a question here. आप verbal किसी class लोगे for CSAT course? Yeah, I'll be the one who will be taking your verbal class. Okay. All right. So I hope you understood this particular question, which was asked in 2016. Now let's move to another question and see if we can implement this thing there. This also came in 2016. So now what will we do? We will actually, okay, so why not C in this question? Okay. See, C is saying every developmental activity is directly or indirectly linked to climate adaptation. Okay. Now please understand, A equal to climate adaptation. Okay. Lakshajit, A is climate adaptation. B is other developmental activities. Okay. What is he saying here? He is saying climate adaptation, that is A, may be rendered ineffective. So A is ineffective if policies are not designed in the context of other developmental concerns. If policies, this is ineffective if policies are not designed according to B. Now you are saying A doesn't work if you are not considering B. In option C, he's saying all B's is directly or indirectly linked to A. Is this an inference that you are drawing from this information? No, you are saying A doesn't work without B. Now, then are you saying all B's should have A's? No, it should be all A's should have B's. Isn't it? Not all B's should have A's. So all A's should have B's is what is there in D. Climate adaptation should be examined in tandem with other development options. Economic development options would mean all A's should be examined in tandem with B's. Isn't it? So which is a direct, most rational, most logical and rational inference from this piece of information? Let us see this. Let me read it out for you. We are witnessing a dangerous dwindling of biodiversity. What is the meaning of the word? What is the meaning of the word dwindling? It's my pleasure, Lakshajit. Yes, we are witnessing a dangerous dwindling of biodiversity in our food supply. What is the meaning of the word dwindling? Dwindling means something which is coming down or becoming weaker or becoming smaller slowly. We are witnessing a dangerous dwindling of biodiversity in our food supply. What does that mean? Whatever we eat, we regularly eat the same stuff again and again. We don't generally have a very balanced diet. And this idea of balanced diet is slowly going away from our food supply. The food supply that we have, that also doesn't contain all types of food. The green revolution is a mixed blessing. What is green revolution? Since you are preparing for civil services, I am sure you know about the green revolution and Swaminathan and Norman Borlaug and all those things. So he's saying, this author is saying that this is a mixed blessing. Okay, mixed blessing means that yes, there are lots of positive things here, but there are a few negative things also. Okay, it's not just positive things, there are a few negative things also. Over time, farmers have come to rely heavily on broadly adapted high yield crops to the exclusion of varieties adapted to the local conditions. What is the meaning of this sentence? Over time, over a period of time, farmers have come to rely heavily on broadly adapted high yield crops. Those crops which give you high yield only, farmers are going for them. High yield means more production per area or per unit time. Okay. And broadly adapted, people are accepting it everywhere, and it's a high yield crop. Farmers are going for those things only, to the exclusion of varieties adapted to local conditions. Those things which grow only in local conditions, those things which grow only in a particular place, not generally accepted by all people in a particular country or across the world, they do not go for those things because they're not high yield. They grow in a particular area under very strict conditions only. Monocropping vast fields with the same genetically uniform seeds helps boost yield and meet immediate hunger needs. Yet, high yield varieties are also genetically weaker crops that require expensive chemical fertilizers and toxic pesticides. So what is he saying? Yes, it is understandable that if you monocrop means you grow only one type of crop in a particular field, with the same genetically uniform seeds, like same kind of genetically modified seeds or genetically एक ही तरह का seed, if you are using, that helps in high boost. Of course, yield becomes much higher and immediately you can satisfy the hunger of many people, but they require very expensive chemical fertilizers and toxic pesticides, those things which actually might harm human beings or animals or the surroundings or the nature. Okay, those things are also there in such high yield crops. In our focus on increasing the amount of food we produce today, we have accidentally put ourselves at risk for food shortages in future. Okay, now what is he saying here? He's saying basically what are fillers here and what are the main points here. He's saying your first main point is because of green revolution. So because of green revolution, what is happening? People are growing high yield crops only and generally adaptable crops, which many people buy. Okay, they are not growing locally developed crops. Now he's talking, this is point number one. Now he's talking about high yield crops. High yield crops probably give more growth, so increased growth, but they are affecting the environment. They're affecting nature by using very expensive chemical, he's saying fertilizers and toxic pesticides. So this is where we are saying mixed placing. Yes, growth is increasing, but there are some issues also. Then he is drawing up the conclusion. What is the conclusion? In our effort to increase the amount of food we produce, so in our effort to increase the food produced, what are we doing? We are actually putting ourselves at risk of food shortages in the future. Okay, so this is the basic idea. This is the basic skeletal idea of the passage. Everything else is something which is a filler. You might very well remove those things from consideration. Then, now he's asking, which among the following is the most logical and critical inference that can be made from the above passage? So most logical and critical inference. So what is the most logical and critical inference? Green revolution is actually leading to future food shortages. Yes, it's a mixed blessing. So this is the explanation. This is the explanation part. And what is the inference we are drawing? Green revolution. Yes, it looked very, very nice, very promising when it started, but now we are slowly understanding that green revolution is something that's leading us towards future food shortage or maybe even harming the environment. Okay, so let us see the options now. Option A: in our agricultural practices, we have become heavily dependent on expensive chemical fertilizers and toxic pesticides only due to green revolution. Okay, please understand this. What is he saying? This one is close. In our agricultural practices, we have become heavily dependent. We have become heavily dependent on expensive chemical fertilizers and toxic pesticides. Are we talking about this? Are we talking about only chemical fertilizers and toxic pesticides? No, we are talking about the mixed blessing that this green revolution is. But let us keep this on hold. If you do not find anything better, we might go with A also as an answer, because A is close, not exactly what I want, but I want something like, say, close to this. Let us see B. Monocropping vast fields with high yield varieties is possible due to green revolution. Is this the main idea or the most critical inference? No, this is only the positive part. We are talking about a mixed blessing. That is, there is some negative part also. B can be eliminated easily because B only talks about the positive part of green revolution. We are not talking about the positive part. We are talking about the negative part also, isn't it? Let us see C. Monocropping with high yield varieties is the only way to ensure food security to millions. Please notice this particular word. There are words called quantitative and qualitative words. Okay, what are quantitative and qualitative words? Quantitative and qualitative words are those words which give a quantity or a quality to a particular sentence. If I say I have one friend, okay, if I say the only friend I have is him, then you're actually saying I don't have any other friend. Where you say I have one friend, you're saying mera ek dost hai. Like, okay, others may be not as close to this person as this person is. But when I say I have only one friend, I have only one good friend, what does that mean? Everybody else are bad. Okay. So this only will not suit this particular thing. Nowhere has it been mentioned that monocropping with high yield varieties is the only way you can satisfy the hungers of millions. Okay, number one. Number two, this is also only the positive part. We are more focused on the negative part because he's saying green revolution is a mixed blessing. This is what we must focus on, mixed blessing. CD. Green revolution can pose a threat, important word, can pose a threat to biodiversity. Yes, biodiversity is what has been talked about here in food supply and food security in the long run. Food security, put ourselves at risk for food shortages in the future. Food security in the long run. So D is a better answer than A. So your best choice would be option D. So this is how actually ensure that your answers are as close as possible to correct. Okay. So I hope this thing is clear. Let's move to the next question. By killing transparency and competition, crony capitalism is harmful to free enterprise, opportunity, and economic growth. Now, what are we saying here? What is the meaning of crony capitalism? What is the meaning of the word crony? Crony means friends, generally used in a negative context. Okay. Now, you and your cronies means I'm tired of your friends, something like that. So crony capitalism means capitalism where I start selling something, then I slowly bring my close people to the capitalism, to that selling part. Like I take supply from my brother, I sell my things to my brother-in-law. My sister is running a business, so I take consultancy from her. So that is crony capitalism, actually keeping the money flowing within the group only, within the group of friends only. Okay. Now he's saying it, first thing he's saying is crony capitalism kills transparency and competition. So transparency, competition, it kills. Second, it's harmful to free enterprise. Free enterprise, what is free enterprise? Anybody can do business. So I can start my own business and I have a fair chance of succeeding in that business also. Okay, so that is free enterprise. Opportunity, not everybody gets opportunity because this closed group of cronies, they will decide, no, I don't want to buy from anyone else. I want to buy whatever be the cost, whatever be the quality, I want to buy from my brother only. So that is lack of opportunity for anybody else outside the coterie. Okay. And economic growth gets hampered because economic growth is then becoming like then going to only one part of the persons. Okay. Now crony capitalism, where now he's explaining what is crony capitalism. Crony capitalism, where rich and the influential are alleged to have received land and natural resources and various licenses in return for payoffs to venal politicians. What is the meaning of the word venal? Venal means corrupt. Okay, venal means corrupt. So corrupt politicians, they give money to corrupt politicians. Hamare beech mein hi rahega ye. So and let not anybody outside this group come and say start their own businesses. Is a major issue to be tackled. This is a very major issue to be tackled. So this thing, crony capitalism, is something which needs to be tackled immediately. One of the greatest dangers to growth of developing economies like India is the middle income trap, where crony capitalism creates oligarchies. What is an oligarchy? An oligarchy is where a group of people, group of rich people run the government. Okay, that slow down the growth. Okay, what happens? What happens? He's saying in a country like India, which is still developing, okay, it has fallen into a middle income trap. What is the meaning of middle income trap? Middle income trap means most of the people only have enough money to run their day-to-day activities and probably live in comfort. They don't have enough backing or enough investment or enough capital to start their own business. Only very rich organizations have the capital enough to start new businesses. So they are the ones which start new businesses. The middle income people are only working for these businesses and not earning enough to start their own businesses. So that is the middle income trap developing countries like India falls into. Okay, so he's saying because of this crony capitalism, a country like India will fall into something called the middle income trap, where crony capitalism is creating oligarchies. Oligarchies means what? Group of people running or like pressurizing the government to give, say, licenses and all the land and all these things to only those groups of people. That actually slows down the growth. That is what he's saying in the passage. Now let us see what is he asking. Which among the following is the most logical corollary to the above passage? What is the meaning of the word corollary? Corollary is something that comes out, something that is inferred as a secondary thing, not the main conclusion, but something that comes as an additional, an appendage. Okay, like yes, this is also something which can be inferred. Got it? Now let us see the options. Launching more welfare schemes and allocating more finances for the current schemes are urgently needed. Now, we are saying the current situation in India is full of crony capitalism. Are we saying that we need to give more finances to those schemes which are actually leading to crony capitalism? Or now, what are welfare schemes? Welfare schemes are those where we give money to those people who do not have money but deserve it. So there, what happens? You actually like give money to those people to run their life, not to start businesses. Actually, maybe sometimes through MSMEs and all you give, but like it's on a very small scale. So most likely A is not your answer, because we are not talking about finances for the current schemes. We are talking about schemes where people will get investment to start their own businesses, so that crony capitalism disappears. Like the whole passage is negative of crony capitalism, isn't it? Okay, I'll explain the meaning of corollary. Just a second. Let's finish. Since we are in a flow, let's finish this. Efforts should be made to push up economic growth by other means and provide licenses to the poor. Okay, this part may be correct. Licenses to the poor alone will not lead to businesses, because you also need investment. You also need land. All those things need to be given, but one part is satisfied here. But see the first part. Efforts should be made to push up economic growth by other means. Economic, like let there be crony capitalism. Crony capitalism रहने दो, वो तो है ही, उसको रहने दो. You develop the economy through other means. Like probably the government starts its own businesses and gives jobs to people. No, this is not something we are talking about. Moreover, only licenses will not help. Let us see C. Greater transparency in the functioning of the government and promoting the financial inclusion are needed at present. So this is your correct answer, because firstly, crony capitalism, if you want to remove it, then you need more transparency on part of the government. Whom are they paying loans to? Whom are they giving investment to? Whom are they allocating lands to? All those things. Okay. And financial inclusion. What does that mean? Financial inclusion means that everybody must be included in the developmental idea. That is probably one way of doing it is employees should be given shares of the companies. Okay, so that they also earn based on the profit earned. It should not only go to one group of people. So employees should have money, because this particular organization where I'm working, this one is flourishing because the work that I do, I get some part of the profits. And based on that profit, there is a possibility that I become, say, probably affluent enough to start my own business, so that I can create some such opportunities for others. So most likely C is the best way of resolving this issue. So let us keep C in consideration. Let us see if D has anything better to present. We should concentrate more on developing manufacturing sector than service sector. Anything related to manufacturing or service sector? No, not related to manufacturing or service sector. So the best answer for this question is option C. Now coming to Kamaljit's question. Kamaljit is asking what is the meaning of corollary. Okay, see, corollary means something. See, whenever you have an say an argument. In that argument, there is a primary kind of inference that you draw, the primary conclusion that you draw out of the argument. For example, say the example that we took, okay, which is about say there are dark clouds in the sky. What is the immediate inference from there? The immediate inference is, okay, the immediate inference is that it's going to rain. Now, a corollary of that would be the environment is going to become cooler. So that's a corollary coming out of this. Okay, corollary is a kind of an inference that follows the main inference or follows an inference that is already drawn. So here we already have an inference drawn, which is that, what is the inference drawn in the passage? The inference drawn in the passage is this one. One of the greatest dangers to growth of developing economies like India is the middle income trap, where crony capitalism creates oligarchies that slow down the growth. Okay, this is the inference already drawn from this part. He's asking which of these inferences follows this inference. Okay, so that is your corollary. Which of these statements, A, B, C, D, is an inference drawn from this inference, which is already drawn from the information? Is that clear? Now, let's move to the next question. Okay, we will do 1 or 2 more questions, and then in case you have any doubts, we could clear them. So let us see this. Understanding of the role of biodiversity in the hydrological cycle enables better policy making. What is the meaning of this sentence? This sentence means biodiversity, that is, different kinds of animals and plants live in a particular area along with, say in tandem with other animals and plants. So that is biodiversity. It should not be that one particular species is at an advantage over some other particular species. That species may be human beings also. Human beings should not be at an advantage because of some particular species which is, say, becoming extinct. So understanding the role of biodiversity in hydrological cycles. Okay, what is the meaning of hydrological cycles? Water cycles. Enables better policy making, helps us in developing our policies better. The term biodiversity refers to the variety. So he is now explaining the meaning of this biodiversity. If you already know the meaning of biodiversity, then this part becomes your filler. You don't require it. If you do not know, then you can refer to this. Probably this part, this explanation of biodiversity, will not help you to answer your question. Okay. So the term biodiversity refers to the variety of plants, animals, microorganisms, and the ecosystems in which they occur. So the variety should stay together. Water and biodiversity are independent. Okay, interdependent. Biodiversity is dependent on water. Okay. In reality, the hydrological cycle decides how biodiversity functions. In turn, vegetation and soil drive the movement of water. Every glass of water we drink has at least in part passed through fish, trees, bacteria, soil, and other organisms. Passing through these ecosystems, it is cleansed and made fit for consumption. The supply of water is a critical service that the environment provides. So what is he saying here? He's talking about what is the main point here? The main point is the interdependence. Okay, the water that we drink comes through a lot of filtering process, which is because of biodiversity, and biodiversity cannot flourish without water. So there is an interdependent. That is the main idea of this passage. Now, this entire thing is, like, you can understand the first part is not something probably which you get the answer from. You most likely, by the understanding of this and the little knowledge that I have, I should think that, okay, question to mujhe agle part se hi aayega. Let us see. Which among the following, he is now asking, which among the following is the most critical inference that can be made from the above passage? Most critical inference that can be made from the above passage. Now, let us see A. A says, biodiversity sustains the ability of nature to recycle water. Very much something that I want as my critical inference. We are talking about the interdependence. We are talking about something that comes from the last few sentences of the passage. Most likely A is your answer, most likely, because he's actually in one statement, he's stating this entire thing. Biodiversity sustains the ability of nature to recycle water. And of course, vice versa is also there. Let us see B. We cannot get potable. What is the meaning of the word potable? Potable means something which is drinkable. Okay, pot is the root, which means to drink. So something that's healthy. Okay, something that's drinkable. So we cannot get potable water without the existence of living organisms. We cannot get is what he's saying. Okay, a negative statement. Let us see. Let us keep it on hold. We will say analyze A and B probably and see which one is the answer. A is still my better answer. Plants, animals, and microorganisms continuously interact among themselves. This is from here. What is biodiversity? Ka part hai. If you were asked the question, which of the following is true about biodiversity, probably this would have been your answer. Again, one important thing that you must consider here is interact. Okay. Now, how do they interact? What kind of interaction are we talking about? Are they interacting through, say, probably creating a platform for others to thrive? Probably, say, the tiger eats the deer eats extra plants. So because there are lots of grass around, so more deer may be produced, which tiger controls. Tiger then is like tiger carries probably, say, the seeds of plants so that plants can propagate. So this entire cycle may be an interaction. Okay, so this is not the most critical inference, but this is true about biodiversity based on our knowledge or based on this information that he has given in the second line. This, the term biodiversity refers to this information. So C you can more or less eliminate because this is not something which is the most critical information. Living organisms could not have come into existence without hydrological cycles. Could not have come into existence without hydrological cycles. Okay, now that is something which like is related to evolution. Like, could it have come? Where was there another way where it could have come? Probably we are not concerned with evolution here. So between A and B, in A he says biodiversity sustains the ability of nature to recycle water. B says we cannot get potable water, that is drinkable water, without the existence of living organisms. Now, which one can you eliminate? B must be eliminated because it's not only living organisms. If you see it, it's not just living organisms. He's talking about plants, animals, microorganisms, and the ecosystems in which they occur. That is the biodiversity we are talking about, not just living organisms. So most likely B will also be eliminated. A will be your best answer. Okay, I hope this is clear. This was an easy question, not very difficult. Let us do one last question and then we will open the panel for doubts. So let us see the fifth one. In the last decade, the banking sector has been restructured with a high degree of automation and products that mainly serve the middle class and upper middle class society. So what is the point here? The point is saying, if you take the last 10 years, in the last decade, the banking sector has actually restructured to high degree of automation, one, and he's saying it's serving middle class and upper middle class. Okay, today, so now, so this is in the last 10 years, this is now. Today, there is a need for a new agenda for the banking and non-banking financial services. So if you talk about NBFS and banking services also today, then there is a new agenda required. What is the new agenda? That does not exclude the common man. So of course, we were serving only the middle class and the upper middle class. We are saying it should not exclude the common man, because the common man, it's time the common man came into the purview of the banking or non-banking financial services sector. Okay, so that is something which is conveyed by the passage. Now what are we saying? Which one of the following is the message that is essentially implied in the above passage? So basically he's asking, like, what can you infer from here? So let us see the options. Need for more automation, more products of banks. No. Are we talking about more automation and more products? No, automation was there. Lots of automation, high level of automation was there in the last 10 years. Now we require financial inclusion is what he's saying. Not just the other middle class, upper middle class and the middle class. We also need to include the common man, people who do not belong to middle class or upper middle class. Okay, we need to get the poorest of the poor into the banking system. Okay, so that is the requirement is what he's saying. So we are not talking about more automation or more products. We are talking about getting common people into the equation. Let us see B. Need for radical restructuring of our entire public finance system. Firstly, we are not talking about public finance system. We are talking about the banking system, banking sector, which is not just public. Okay, and the NBFS also. So B you can eliminate. Moreover, radical restructuring is not something he's saying. He's saying include the common man. Radical restructuring has already been done in the last 10 years. So let us see C. Need to integrate banking and non-banking institutions? No, he's saying both banking and non-banking institutions should include the common man. Need to promote financial inclusion? Yes, pretty easy question. Financial inclusion is where you do not just make products for the so-called upper class, you also make it for the common man. Okay, so of course D is the only answer that can even go with it. So this is what is implied by this particular question. Okay, so I hope you understood what inferences are. You have a fair idea now of how to solve inference questions. Of course, the person who practices more is going to get better marks. So that is something which is already there, but my endeavor today was to make things sir, reason for elimination of C in this question, need to integrate. Now did he say C? What is he saying here? Bhavani, what is he saying? Today there is a need for a new agenda for the banking and non-banking financial services. So we need a new agenda. Is that agenda joining these two entities? Are you saying that all non-banking financial services should actually join with banks? Like only banks should provide financial services? No. Is there anything of that kind indicated here? No. What is the agenda? The agenda is that it should not exclude the common man. जो गरीब लोग हैं, जो common लोग हैं, the banking system and the non-banking financial system, that is insurance and other things, they should create services for the common man also, or in other words, they should go for financial inclusion. Okay, so there is no question of integrating. Integrating means joining. Okay, so that is basically the idea. Okay, so what I'm saying is, see, in these kinds of tests, in aptitude kind of tests, it's not the most intelligent person who gets through. It's the person who practices more than others. And that's the reason why there is a cutoff system and there is a so-called qualifying mark. I was saying that it's not that the most intelligent person gets through aptitude tests. It's the person who has practiced more. Okay. So what I would strongly suggest is you start practicing these questions and post-mortem these questions. You squeeze them dry before you leave a question. Like, ye mera ho gaya. Before you say that, you actually squeeze it dry. Is there anything that I'm missing here? Let me segregate the sentences. Let me see what the author is trying to say. Let me see what the question setter is asking. Analyze all those things and finally come to your answer. Okay, so this is the method of pedagogy that we use in the course that we are offering to you. Okay, so if you want to know more about that, you can always contact Edukemy. Okay, but whatever be the case, understand that what I'm saying is, whatever be the case, whatever you do for your preparation, make sure you put this thing into consideration. Okay, that I have to squeeze every question dry before I can leave it. Okay, coming to Maitri's question. She's asking that the level of difficulty of questions has grown over the years, like in 2019 and 20. Could you please throw some light on this issue? Yes, we have designed the course based on 2019 and 20 papers only, which are more difficult. I have taken 2016 and 17 questions because I'm not saying these are easy. I'm just saying they're comparatively a little easier than the 2019 and 20 questions. But you have to understand, Maitri, what can the question setter do to make these questions difficult? Suppose this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 line passage. Let me insert 5 more things here and tell you that, okay, there are 5 more things. I give you some history of the banking sector. I give you some idea about what high degree of automation they have done. I give you some idea about non-banking financial institutions, and then I ask the same question. It becomes more difficult because you now have an extra step where you are actually removing the fillers before coming actually zeroing in on this part. Okay, so that is one way of making the questions difficult. Second, they might ask you one inference ahead. Like they might say, okay, this is one of the applications of the inference. They say in this case they need to promote financial inclusion. So they might ask, okay, which of the following steps may be taken? The government must do this. They will give you 4 things. Government does this, government should do this, government should do this, government should do this. Government should actually develop schemes where, say, people can actually, say, probably create a bank account, a zero balance bank account, and probably say foster digital transactions only, so they can do all those things to promote financial inclusion. So that might be one type of question. Another thing, maybe they might make the words difficult. They might give you synonyms of these words itself, which are more difficult and you are unlikely to know the meaning of. Okay, so there are various ways in which they make the paper difficult, but you have to understand that whatever be the case, you will always have 50% of the questions which are pretty easy. So if there are 80 questions in the test, 40 questions would be pretty easy. Okay, your primary job is also to search for those easy questions and answer. Yes, I agree that the level of difficulty has increased over the years. Probably they want people who have a better logic, but that doesn't mean all questions have become, say, inexorably difficult. You can very well do them. Okay, yes, some of the questions have become difficult. If you are not able to answer any question, it would be very smart for you to leave that question and search for something easy, because easy questions will always be there. You are supposed to search for those easy questions. Okay, something that you understand. All right then. So if we do not have any other questions, then let's end this meeting. Thank you very much, guys, for attending, and take care and all the best for your preparation.